So I decided to try and clear up my foggy headlight by basically treating it like it was a paint job of a car. I'm really shit at body work. I'm not very good at it at all. And because I'm not good at it, I've been too scared to try to get better at it. Because I don't have any scrap vehicles I can screw up for fun is to get practice in. But anyway, this Suzuki of mine, it's had a pretty yellow, foggy headlight for years. And I was considering just replacing the entire assembly, but it's I think it's like 100 or 150 bucks was the cheapest one off of eBay. So then a few months back, I bought some of that rubbing compound that's meant to clear your headlights, and I did everything I was supposed to do, followed the instructions perfectly, and when it was all said and done, it still looked like a yellow foggy headlight. I even repeated the process twice and just kept looking like a yellow foggy headlight. So finally I decided to, I'm taking a break from the work on the roof, but I got a few days until I gotta go back to work so I can still do something around the house. And I decided to go out and buy some sandpaper and some clear coat that's actually meant for cars, and just wet sand the headlight. So I started out with a 240 grit and was spraying the whole thing down with a bottle of water as I was wet sanding with the 240 grit, and that roughed everything up, made it look really ugly, but it wasn't yellow anymore. And then I went to 400 grit, and that made it look less like let's say less ugly, but still foggy, all scratched up. And I went from the 400 to the 800, and suddenly it wasn't looking scratched up at all anymore. It just looked like non-transparent plastic. It just looked lightly fogged. And then I went from the 800 to a 1200 grit sandpaper and did that for a while, and it was actually looking pretty good. And then I decided that, okay, now that all the oxidation's off, I'll cover it with this clear coat that's actually meant for vehicles. And when you first spray clear coat on, it's foggy, so you can't tell how it's going to look. But I sprayed it on just hoping it'd turn out okay. And I went inside for an hour and let it sit in the sun and dry. And I came back out, and there's white gunk all over the black paint job from the dirty water and everything else that I haven't washed off yet. But as I was approaching the side of the vehicle, I'll show you what I saw. And as I was getting close to the edge, I could see all this dirt and dirty water dried on it, and I thought, oh man, I hope my headlight doesn't look like crap. And I turned the corner, and holy shit, it looks like a brand new headlight. In fact, it looks so good, it now looks better than the other one. I thought this one looked like a new headlight. I thought this looked good because this one was so yellow and oxidized and ugly. But now this one looks better than that one. So now I got to take my stuff and basically just redo the process all over again. I decided that I wanted to put a small lift on my Suzuki, my Grand Vitara. Unfortunately, most of the stuff I find online that you can buy is for the old body style. And then the stuff that I can get for the new body style is few and far between and kind of overpriced in my opinion, especially since it's usually just a block, like a polyurethane block for the coil. So what I decided to do was I took my compressor out of that corner and I drug it over there to the edge and threw the hose over the line and brought all my pneumatic tools down to the driveway, and I took my coil off, the whole assembly actually, strut and everything. And now basically what I'm doing is I am getting all my different measuring devices, and some chalk, and I'm going to basically replicate this exact thing. Some of this scrap steel that I've got. This is 1/4-inch steel, but I've got a bunch of it just as scrap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 4 of these plates, and one will go on the bottom and one will go on the top, and I'm going to weld a spacer in between, and basically this will bolt directly to the bottom plate I'm going to make, and then the top plate will bolt directly to the vehicle where this used to be. And then the tubing, that round tubing over there, is what I'm going to use as the spacer in between to probably give about 2 inches of lift or so. The reason why I got to make 4 is I got to make 1 for each side. Now that'll bring the front of the vehicle up. And I've never put much thought into just doing a leveling kit. I've always thought about full-on lifts. But when I was jacking up the front of the vehicle, I was stopping it at certain increments to kind of see what it would look like if just the front end by itself was 2 inches higher. It actually made the entire vehicle look really good. I was kind of shocked at how much of a difference it made to the overall ground clearance and the aggressive look of the vehicle, all just by making the front end 2 inches higher. So I might not even do the back end. I might just make it a leveling kit basically, but we'll see how this turns out. All right, well, making progress from that scrap steel. I cut out these triangles, and then I marked them, drilled holes, and then I bored those holes out with this stepper bit here, whatever you call it. Now I am rounding out the corners so that it actually fits on just like that, and should clear all the corners the same way. Now, in order to add reinforcement around these, I'm actually going to take some more scrap, potentially some old corners that I have or something else, and basically I'm going to weld a lip around the corner on each side, just kind of help reinforce and prevent it from flexing at all. Well, that's the basic thing. It's just an extension to go on the top of that. But I decided, instead of going with 4 centimeters or 5 centimeters, I decided to go with 8 centimeters. You know, I'm already in there, might as well make it look extra cool. This is what happens when you get greedy. I know the stock suspension can accommodate a 2-inch lift without changing out anything, just putting blocks in there. Just about 5 centimeters. So I was going to do a 4 centimeter. Should be no problem. I know for a fact it can handle it. But like I said, I started getting excited and I thought, what about 8 centimeters? I mean, it'll stress it a little bit, but you know, I can address the stress later. I can change out some things later. For now, I bet I could squeeze 8 centimeters in there. I've now spent the past 2 hours wrestling and fighting with that fucking front end, and it's just not happening. It keeps on coming up just barely short. No matter what tricks I pull, no matter where I put an additional jack, what I spread apart, what I twist, what I hammer on, ain't fucking happening. The stock suspension as it sits right now just cannot handle that 8 centimeter gap. So I've come back upstairs. I'm going to trim it down to what it should have been in the first place. Lesson fucking learned. Don't be greedy. Well, I've been driving it for about a day and a half, and this little DIY lift in the front seems to be doing just fine. It's not causing any rattles or squeaks. It's not making it drive funny. Everything seems just fine, actually. No issues at all. I think now that I'm seeing the way it sits with the 2.5 inches added to the front, it's kind of like a leveling kit. I really like that stance a lot. But I'm still going to bring up the rear a little bit, but I think with the 2.5 inches in the front, I might only bring up the rear about 1 inch or 1.5 inch, and that'll bring the whole thing up higher, but it'll also keep it pretty well leveled.